Personally, I really believe that doing craft fairs, art festivals, any kind of in-person event like that is really going to jumpstart your business. You can do more faster than what it usually takes to build up an online clientele, a wholesale clientele. This is a way to get in front of so many people all at one time. But like applying for these shows, getting into them, it can be very daunting, very confusing. So in this video, I am going to break it down for you and explain how you can easily apply for shows, hopefully get into them, but let's jump right into it. If you don't know me, I'm Justine. I'm your business bestie. I have been the owner and designer at Venucci Limited Jewelry for 13 years now, and these videos are sharing my personal expertise as I work in the industry that we are all trying to thrive in. Let's start with the type of shows, because saying art festival or craft show is pretty catch-all, and you've got your night markets, your Sunday strolls, your high-end art festivals, you've got your carnival style festivals, because all these places have vendors. Think music festivals. How about theme shows where something like horror or kink is the topic? So really, the type of show that you're going to apply to really has to coincide with what kind of work you're doing. I think this is actually probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see other artists make, is they pick the wrong show for their business and they think that art festivals don't work for them, but really they just haven't gotten themselves in front of their best customer. A show could attract tens of thousands of customers, but if they're not in the demographic of what you're looking for, it just doesn't even matter. Usually for 80 to 90% of us, you can start small, work your way up. You know, do a farmer's market, see how that feels. We're gonna jump into things like talking about booth display and everything, and that's a great way to hone some of those question marks that you have right now. For some of us though, that won't necessarily work. If you're making jewelry that begins at $500, a farmer's market, unless it's like in New York City or LA, is probably not going to be your target market. You're probably not going to find someone that's willing to drop $500 on a first time meeting with a vendor at a farmer's market or a night market pop-up. You might really have to start with a higher end art festival, which means you'll need to put in a little bit more of an investment, but it can definitely still work. Once you kind of have an idea of what shows you're going to aim to apply for first, how do you find them? There's a lot of different ways you can go about this. There are several websites that are specifically for applying to shows, the most popular one being Zapplication. I will make sure that I put that in the show notes. There's a few others, Eventney, Booth Central. I like to search Instagram on Google, where I'll put festival in Las Vegas, summer festivals in Las Vegas, art festival in Las Vegas, and just see what pops up. And then, of course, the absolute best way to really hear and know about festivals is from other vendors and your art peers. Whenever you do go to shows, make sure you're talking to your neighbors and those around you. Ask them what shows they're doing next. Some of my absolute best shows I have found just from asking people what shows they're doing. So you've decided what type of show you're going to apply for. You've found one of those types of shows in your city or close by enough that you feel comfortable with. Now we need to talk about the actual application. These days, there is a simplicity to it because you're filling out a web page. So it's going to tell you exactly what you need to put down in the boxes. Some things you might want to come up with first, or they almost always ask for an artist statement or a materials statement, like what kind of materials you're working with. And I would have a couple of these ready because some shows will only let you put in a statement that's 200 characters. Some will give you unlimited space to talk about you and your business. The other element that I know is the most important are your photos. You have both your photos of your pieces of work and you have your booth photo. And I know people tend to write off the booth photo, but the more I'm in this industry, the more I understand that the booth photo is wildly important. Like, I think it might be too important, but it is what it is. And from what I understand on these juries, if you even have a leaf in the center of your booth photo, out, especially if you're competing against so many people. You know, some of these shows have 150 spots and will get 600-700 applications these days. So make sure your booth photo is nice and tight in your booth, well lit. You don't want it to have too much sunshine. You want it to be more of that ambient light. Honestly, I would set it up on a cloudy day in your backyard or a local park or something like that. In fact, I've done it in my backyard, but I've thought about doing it in a park just because, like, what if I set it up with my jewelry and people come by and they're like, oh, what is this? So just something to think about. And if you do that, tell me how it works out for you, because I've always been kind of curious. After the booth photo, what you think should be the most important, your actual product photos. And you really want these to be cohesive. You want them to look like they're all from the same collection. The goal isn't to show a little bit of everything that you can do. The goal is to show that you are an artist that has something to say, and this is what you're saying. You want all the backgrounds to be the same, and there is often like kind of a standard ombre background that people use. You can go to most of the art festivals websites and look at the artists from the previous years, or if they are featuring any artists, they almost always pull from the application photos, so you can see what other people are using for their application photos. You also might need to, give them your website or your Instagram, so make sure those are updated. They probably will also ask a price point, and a lot of times they will ask about tax numbers and information. And if you don't have a tax number for the state you're applying to a show in, that's totally fine. Most of them understand that you probably won't provide it until you get into the show. And of course, you'd have to choose your category of what your art is. And remember that if you're not jurying into a category, if you're not applying in a certain category, then you cannot show art from that category. For example, some ceramicists may make jewelry as well as, kitchenware. But if they were putting their kitchenware in their photos and applying under ceramics, they would not be allowed to have the jewelry pieces. They would actually have to submit a second application, which is a thing that people do. I have a friend, she does wall art and jewelry, and she'll submit 2 applications to each show. And then sometimes, she won't get in with the jewelry, but she'll get in with the wall art. So then she'll only show the wall art. While I truly believe that this is the quickest way to jumpstart your business, the quickest way to get a lot of customers on your mailing list, to make people aware that you exist, it is also the most money up front, I believe. You're going to need a tent. Some artists are going to need pro panels, those like big, tall, kind of carpeted panels that you put your art on. You're going to need weights for your tent. You're going to need displays and tables, possibly tablecloths. You'll need your inventory, and that's just for the actual show. You're going to need gas for travel, possibly a hotel room if you need to stay overnight. And then there's also other expenses like insurance and taxes. Once you put the money out, however, a lot of it is a one-time deal. You're not buying a tent every show. You're not buying new displays every show. You may update and, upgrade and stuff like that, but it's not a necessity. There's other things that you can do to cut down costs. For example, I have turned my vehicle into a little camper van. So I can not only it brings around all my displays and my jewelry and my tables and my tent, but I can also camp and sleep out of it. So I never have to worry about hotel rooms. You can also bring some of your own food. I know some people like to treat these shows as a mini vacation, and I've gone through phases of that, but also there's times where I just really buckle down and I want to make as much money as I can. So I just bring a lot of snacks during the day. And then of course, there are booth fees. Higher booth fees usually mean you're going to make more money. So while I see a lot of people bulk at booth fees that are $400, $500, $600 and up, I have found that the higher booth fees I pay, I usually do better at the shows. For my absolute best show of the year, the one where I'm closing in on $20,000, I pay almost $2,000 for that booth fee. If I see a booth fee that's under $300, there is a higher chance that that show is not for me, because I don't think it's bringing in the kind of artists that I need to be surrounded with that will bring in the kind of clientele that I need, if that makes sense. Now, this is not true across the board. There have been a couple random markets, one of them being like a little farmer's market in Tucson at a strip mall. Booth fees $40. I made $1,000 there one year in a single day. I think that's worth it. So don't necessarily count those shows out, but definitely be discerning and understand that higher booth fee usually means higher caliber artists. So with all that said, putting out that money, is this worth it? I think so. It is definitely how I jump-started the retail portion of my business. Although I've been in business 13 years, the first about 8 years of that was almost exclusively wholesale, and I was living on the East Coast. I really wanted more of an adventure, so I moved out west and I started outfitting this van and going around to festivals. And my business has grown so much faster than when I was trying to grow it doing wholesale initially. The thing is that especially if you're collecting people's emails, you're getting them to follow you on Instagram, you get quite a following pretty fast. And if you keep them engaged on social media, they will keep coming back to see you. I have, at every single show I do now, I expect to see certain people. They always come to see me. You're getting in front of so many people all at the same time. They learn about you. They may not buy from you this time, but you come again and they brought their niece this time. Oh, here's that jeweler I was telling you about that last year. I wish I had gotten that necklace from her. Well, and then they purchase. There's just no way I would have the online presence I do today without the in-person presence first. I would say 75% of the people on my emailing list, and I have no idea for social media, but a solid percentage, have found me out in the wild doing shows, and they've come along on this journey with me. I've also had wholesale opportunities present themselves through doing these shows. One, I was up in Anacortes. It's a street festival, and there was a woman that owned a cute little boutique up the street. She saw my stuff and she inquired about wholesale. And even if that's not like a direct link to wholesale, you can always use your experience of doing shows to use as like verifiable information that you are a solid business that people want to buy from. Okay, before we kind of wrap it up, I want to go over a few mistakes, and then I also want to mention that if you felt like any of this information was useful today, I have written an ebook with all of this, but with much more information for each step, complete with checklists of things that you will need, little blurbs of my own personal experience, and just a more filled out version of what I'm talking about. And it is on sale right now for 50% off. So please check that out. I think that you will get a lot of value out of it. If you're not ready to make the purchase, but you want to join my mailing list, I will send you a free checklist, a free show checklist. It's my own personal checklist that I use with space for you to add some of your own specific things that I might not bring. My last little section, mistakes that a lot of beginners make. Number one is not bringing enough inventory. I go over some ways to decide on how much inventory to bring in the ebook, but it is always better to have more inventory than you need than not enough. This is a big one. Pricing too low. I know that this is terrifying. I know that there is so much emotion that goes into pricing the jewelry. There may be some imposter syndrome that's going into your pricing. You need to push all of that aside. People expect to pay higher prices in this world, and Instagram and a lot of other social media channels have been doing a pretty good job of educating customers on why handmade items cost so much. And if you're getting a lot of pushback, it probably isn't your client anyway. This is another one that I see that always is a little confusing. People that don't have any signage. There was a woman across from me at a show, and it was very clear what she was selling, but she had no signage. Like, it just made me feel like she wasn't a legit business. Like, what is your business name? Do you have an email? What's your tagline? Like, what are you selling? Just give me a little bit of information to build up some of that trust so that I feel comfortable purchasing from you. I said this one before, applying to the wrong shows. My business is at a point, my price point is at a point where I know that there are a lot of shows that I just would never make any money at. Another quick one is if you are doing a night show or an indoor show, lighting is everything. Lighting can change the entire mood of the booth. It can change how your pieces look. I have seen people that have beautiful product, but their lighting was low and soft, and it's just hard to look. I understand you're trying to set a mood, but people want to be able to see. They want to trust you. They want to know what they're buying. When I have all the jewelry brightly lit up, it is extremely appealing. Another mistake I would say is you want to be tracking all your expenses and profits. You need to know if this show is worth doing again. You need to know if you made money. You need to know your expenses to know how to cut down on them. And then what I think is the number one biggest mistake people make with doing shows is they're not collecting emails. You can also get people to follow you on social. I try to do that too, but collecting emails changed my business. It completely changed my business when I was able to market to all of these people that I see all over the United States on a weekly basis. It feels like if you're doing shows and you're not collecting emails, it's just like they're all one-offs. It's like a waste of your time. You are building a business. You are building a brand. You're not building anything if you're just doing one-off shows. So like I said earlier in the video, before I went over the common mistakes that you could make, please consider purchasing the ebook. I think it will be so much easier. It's all written down for you. It's very clear. There are checklists involved. There are personal anecdotes, and it will give you a lot of confidence, I think, in starting on this venture. If you thought this content was useful, please like and subscribe. It's best to subscribe because I have no posting schedule. I'm very random, and you're going to want to know when I have new videos out.